This is Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Gif.
God, and this is 1995 again, part 3.
Woo!
Is there a sound delay or something on Gifford's?
Was he a little late there?
I don't think so.
He was a little late. It seemed like it was about 10 minutes before he said, I'm Gif.
I noticed that.
It's like he's in Tel Aviv or something.
He's thinking deeply about what he needs to say. I'm going to kick it over to Gif because tonight we are going to discuss Clueless, which was his choice for this year. And it is his turn to share his memories of the year and lead us through our wonderful movie. Take it away, Gif.
All right. Thanks, Brad.
Oh, you're welcome.
So 1995 for me began a lot the same way for you guys. Of course, we were all freshmen in college that year. I was at the Harvard of the Midwest, Morris, Minnesota.
The affordable Ivy.
The affordable Ivy, yes. So that year, I remember this year starting out, I was at Brad's New Year's Eve party.
Oh my God. That is a great memory.
Wow. Yeah. I remember that.
We were all there. That was a good night.
We were all there. So as I'm sitting there in Brad's
we were having
kitchen,
root beer barrels that night.
Right? We were having a lot of everything that night.
Yeah, we were.
In your kitchen, and it's a wonderful party. All the high school friends are there. But I remember thinking, I wonder what my college friends are doing. So that was kind of the point in my life where I was like, okay, these guys are great. Love my high school friends. But now, I'm really ready to just hang out and be with my college friends. And I really started missing them. So I was happy to get back for...
You're really hurting our feelings here.
Yeah, Jesus.
No, I'm just moving on with my memories here.
I
was looking forward to getting back to winter quarter at Morris. What I didn't understand is Winters and Morris. Rob?
That's a Tommy Boy episode, Brad.
I know.
Winters and Morris are awful. There is absolutely nothing to do. It's a wasteland. Fall quarter, I remember there were parties to go to, but it seemed like the cops cracked down a little bit winter quarter, so there was really nothing to do. It's a small town, about 5,000 people, small college. So
that's a big town.
Just kind of, compared to Tyler and Russell. So
thank God I didn't transfer, as I talked about many episodes ago. I
right.
would have gone into a wasteland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not a good place to be, especially when you're single. Which I was at this point. So I don't really have a whole lot of great memories from winter quarter, but spring quarter 95, my roommate and I moved out of the dorms. His older brother, who was a teacher in a town not too far away, had bought this house. And I put house in quotes because it was the smallest house that you could possibly live in. It was maybe 500 square feet total. It was absolutely tiny. But it was awesome because we were out of the dorms, and
this is your freshman year. You left the dorm.
This is freshman year of spring quarter.
Really?
So some of the activities that we were doing in the dorms were looked down upon by some of the RAs. So I didn't have to worry about a watchful eye over my shoulder while I was, doing some things that maybe weren't necessarily legal at the time. So this tiny house, you couldn't have parties in the house because there's no room. But one of the things that me and my roommate did that spring quarter was we always went and played sand volleyball. They had sand volleyball pits on campus by some of the on-campus apartments. And we really enjoyed doing that. So what we decided to do was dig a sand volleyball pit in the backyard of this house. So him and his brother rented this sod kicker, and we kicked out the lawn in the backyard, put up posts and a net, filled everything in with sand that was big enough, just the perfect size for 2-on-2 volleyball. And so at the end of the year, we got a
Kings of the Beach, Pete. Karch Karai.
St. John Smith.
Yep.
That's the other one. There you go.
So we got a hog roaster. We bought a hog, put it on the spit, invited people over and you could enter our 2-man volleyball tournament, or 2-person. I shouldn't exclude the ladies out there. And
I
we
just want
had
to also throw out the name Randy Stoklos was one of the other ones
Oh
too.
yeah, there you go.
I don't think Karch Karai was in that
You're
game.
right. It was St. John Smith and Randy Soklos.
Yeah.
Who was Karch Karai? He was one though, right?
He was a big volleyball player, but he
not in
wasn't
the
in that
Nintendo
particular
game.
game.
Okay.
I'm impressed by your beach volleyball knowledge. Anyway, go on.
Thank you.
So
Nintendo.
he wasn't at the first year, but Karch did sign up to be in the tournament second year, and he came in second. Couldn't hold up to the massive talent we had at Morris. So we had a big blow up party, and that was, a lot of fun. So then we go into summer, and summer was fun. I had the same job that I had the summer before, so I didn't have to look for a job, which was nice. I got a new car that year. So my last trip back to Morris for the end of the year, the alternator went out on my car. So when I moved back home, my dad came up with the truck and one of those 2-wheel car haulers, and we towed my car back to Russell. And there's a little shop in town in Russell, and he had a 1992 red Chevy Cavalier 2-door that was in an accident. He'd fix it up, and I bought that. So I went from a 1980 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme to a 1992 Cavalier. So this is, the car was like 3 years old at that time. So I thought I was, awesome. So shortly after I got that car, I headed to Blue Earth for a long weekend. 2 guys that lived in the dorms next to me, they both lived in Blue Earth, and we got to be real good friends freshman year. And they invited, I don't know, probably like 10 or 12 people from Morris, mostly from our dorm room floor, to come down to Blue Earth for a weekend. And that was a lot of fun. I remember that was the first drive that I went on by myself, where I hadn't been there before. So I got the map out, and my dad helped me figure out where I was going and which roads I needed to take to get over there. So that was really cool.
The days of GPS.
MapQuest.
Yeah, and MapQuest.
It's probably before MapQuest.
Yeah, it would be.
Right?
Oh yeah, I think
Atlas, baby.
Well, yeah.
Rand McNally. You got yourself a little Rand McNally action.
Went on a road trip. So the summer was great. You guys were around. I'm sure we golfed. We had some fun. That summer it was a good time. And then you head back to sophomore year in Morris. Now in Morris, it's a little bit different because 1, it's a very small campus, and 2, a lot of people go there for 2 years and then transfer. That was my plan. If you're in a science major or technical majors, things like that, a lot of people will go there for years, right, and then leave and go to the main campus at the University of Minnesota. So when you come back for your sophomore year, it's like you're an upperclassman, because a lot of people left. So, you're one of the old guys. So, you all
man
the
on
places
campus now.
Yeah, you're the BMOC now. So I get back to Morris, and at this point over the summer, it was kind of nice. My landlord had done some improvements to this tiny little house. So now
You're
instead
in
of
the
having
same place still?
Same place, same tiny little house, $100 a month for rent. It was awesome. He put a wall up, so now we had 2 bedrooms upstairs, and we had.
You want to take that? You can take that if you want.
Wow.
We had 2 bedrooms upstairs, and then 1 downstairs. And I got another roommate who moved into Morris, high school buddy of my original roommate. Both guys from White Bear Lake. So that first Thursday back, everybody's moving back in, and of course you go to a party, right? So this party I go to, it's being thrown by one of the guys who lives in the house is from Bemidji. So I go to this party, and another buddy who was there, I knew him from the year before, Ox. He's also from Bemidji. So he introduces me to this nice young lady who happens to be Courtney. Well, long story short, Courtney and I are now married 20
Yada, yada, yada.
years plus now, or we haven't been married for 25 years, but we've been together for over 25 years. And that was the beginning of my future, really. So we met that night over double shots of tequila. That's what she was drinking, and which makes me a lot better looking. And I accompanied her back to campus that night to make sure there was no ruffians about, make sure she got back to her dorm safely.
What she didn't know was that you were the ruffian.
I don't think she's caught on yet.
Pete's feisty tonight.
Gifford's playing the long game as the ruffian.
Right? Yeah, it's a slow con. So anyway, we didn't see each other again for like another week or so. Happened to run into each other on campus, and I asked her out, and I had her come over to my place. And on our first date, if you want to call it a date, the two of us watched Caddyshack, and she enjoyed that movie, or at least she feigned it like she did.
Well, that's pretty impressive.
Right, that's what I thought. So I figured, well, she's a keeper, even if it's just for this year.
All it takes.
So we kind of started hanging out more and spending more time together, and we started dating October 13th. It was a Friday the 13th of 1995, which would have been about 6 days before Pete met Jenny.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yep.
Yeah, that's correct.
And some of Courtney's roommates told her that it would never last. Plus, being that you started dating on a Friday the 13th usually isn't a good thing. But anyway, so all my memories to that point, I always said were BC. They were before Courtney, and now everything in my life after is after that. So those are some of the memories of 95 for me. One of the great things that did happen in 1995 was a little movie came out on July 19th called Clueless. Of course, this movie stars or is directed by Amy Heckerling, who also directed our least favorite vacation movie. Anyone remember correct. Which one that is?
European?
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
It also stars Wallace Shawn, who was in Vegas Vacation. I made those two connections right off the bat.
That is
correct. But to her credit, did she not also direct Fast Times at Ridgemont High? So
and Johnny Dangerously. European Vacation.
Oh, that's an underrated movie.
Of crap.
Well, and she also
Outlier of crap. Yes.
So this movie is a adaptation. Where do I have this at here?
A loose
adaptation to Emma. So I don't know anything about Emma, but I did a little research, and basically, everything is pretty much laid out the same. There's even characters with very similar names, if not the same names.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So obviously, Emma's a heck of a story. So
by Jane Austen, who I looked this up. I found that Jane Austen is an author.
Breaking news.
Oh my God, Pete.
So this movie, one of the fun little facts I have about this movie, it's the only movie that I went to on consecutive nights in the theater. And the way I remember it is I'm pretty sure, Brad, you and I went to see it together.
Did we? I remember think you talking about it.
I was hanging out with one group of friends, and we didn't have anything to do, so we went to Clueless. And the next night,
but you're talking about like you were at home. Oh, because it's in the summer.
It was in the summer.
You're right. Okay. So I think we did.
I went to with Rhonda the very next night. Either that, or I went to.
I think you went to me with the second time. That's what I remembered.
Yeah, so maybe that's what it was.
I don't know.
It's
good little shout out to Rhonda. Hey, Rhonda, I know she's listening.
Right. So anyway, that's one of my little fun facts on that. It had a $12 million budget, $56.6 million box office, and it opened at number 2 behind Apollo 13.
Oh, Apollo 13.
Also has a 91% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, so we're
Really
in rarefied air here. Oh yeah,
It's kind of had a second life too since it came out on Netflix here. Like my daughter, who's 13, I mean, she loves this movie and has watched it several times, including once with me to prepare for this podcast.
And I think I just like it so much because as a young man growing up on a farm in small town Minnesota, I can really relate to Cher and everything. So, right away, I just love it.
There is
but
that one
I
weird
will
scene where she decides to milk some cows. It's,
and they went cow tipping with Tommy.
Yeah.
So that was kind of crazy. What I will say is I think the costume designer for this movie deserves a Lifetime Oscar. Again, this was when I was right after freshman year, so high school's not that far away. So for me to, appreciate the kind of clothing that Cher and her friends wears, I don't think is too far out of line. I got to tell you, watching it this time, I enjoyed it just as much. So that I really, really enjoyed. Can't argue with the costumes in this movie. Anything to say on that, fellas?
No, they're nice and bright and colorful. They're nice.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Very colorful costumes.
They are nice. Yes.
So one of the things I thought was kind of interesting in this movie is that there are some major stars that go on to other things.
Yes.
So I went through and kind of wrote down some of the stars of the show and which movie this was for them. So Silverstone, this was only her 6th movie. A lot of people knew her more from the Aerosmith videos.
I'm surprised this was her 6th movie.
I wouldn't have guessed it at all. I thought it was like her first or second.
Right. And so the only other one on my list here, so Stacey Dash, this was her 7th.
Who, by the way, was like 29 years old in this movie.
Yes.
Playing a high school kid. But she doesn't look out of place. She's like 29.
Right. Breckenmeyer, this was his 5th movie. Brittany Murphy's, this was her 2nd movie. But
I actually thought this was
Donald
her first
Faison. What's that?
I thought this was her first movie, but
according to IMDb, it's her 2nd movie credit.
Right.
But I'm a huge fan of Donald Faison because I'm a Scrubs fan. This was his 4th movie. And then, of course, Paul Rudd, who is in everything. He's a major star. This was his 4th movie as well. So this movie came pretty early on.
Paul Rudd, who is just
now we're going to have to. Now we're going to have to pause for a half hour while Brad goes on his Paul Rudd
man
said crush
he is
rant.
The best. And by the way, Pete, have you watched I Love You Man yet?
No, I have not. I got to watch it.
I watched it the other night.
You got to slap the bass, Pete. You got to slap the bass.
He is just a treasure. That's all you can say about Paul Rudd. And it started.
And he hasn't aged today, by the way.
No, not at all. He's like Stacey Dash.
Right.
Do you remember the actor that played the dad in Clueless?
I've got a whole list of comments about Dan Hedaya. He's the best part of this whole movie.
Yeah. And I remember him being on Cheers.
Nick Tortelli.
Nick Tortelli. Yeah. And there was a spin-off of Cheers that didn't last very long. It was called The Tortellis. Yep. Now, Nick Tortelli was married to Carla on Cheers for a time. And so, that's
he had that blonde bimbo wife that he always brought into the bar because him and Carlo had been divorced for a long time. But he showed up every once in a while, and he was always funny. And everything this guy does is great. He's also in our movie for next week, so more of that.
That's correct.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, when you watch it, Pete, and get yourself ready.
Something to look forward to for next week.
Although he's not funny in that one like he generally is.
Well, that's
no, not really a funny movie for next week's show.
No.
So,
but anyway, when we get to it, half of my notes are basically quotes and things that Dan Hedaya does in this movie that I love.
And he is great.
He's perfect. He is the best dad.
You can get anywhere in LA in 20 minutes.
Especially for this particular.
Right there. And I'll remember that one because I used to say that about Minneapolis because Gifford, you always were like, "Oh, there's a big city. It's so far," and I'm like, "It's like driving to Marshall. It's 20 minutes. You can do it."
Right.
And then that quote came up in the movie, and we just thought that was great.
So
Gifford, anything more to?
I found that was kind of interesting was some of the people that were considered for roles in this movie. So for Cher, Angelina Jolie, Kerry Russell, and Reese Witherspoon all auditioned, and Sarah Michelle Gellar turned it down. For the part of Josh, Ben Affleck and Zach Braff were considered.
Oh, really?
Seth Green was considered for Travis, and
he would have fit.
For Murray, that would have been a great fit. And I think
Breckin Meyer was great too. But...
Well, right.
Basically, he played that role in Can't Hardly Wait. Seth Green.
Yes.
And
a little more over the top.
Reese Witherspoon pretty much played about this role in Legally Blonde, so they both,
correct.
You know they could do it because they had that kind of role.
Right.
And the last one I had was Murray. Terrence Howard auditioned for it, and Chappelle was considered.
Wow.
But I loved Donald Faison.
So he's great.
So glad that
it was perfectly done. That was well done.
Very, very good cast.
I think all those parts were, and obviously you watch the movie but I think they were cast perfectly, and that's part of why the movie endures.
Right. Absolutely.
The one thing about getting back to Silverstone and the Aerosmith videos, the casting director for this movie had first pitched Silverstone to Amy Heckerling, and Heckerling instead she came back with no. Instead, I want this girl from the Aerosmith videos, and they argued about it, and then it took a while before they realized that they were talking about the same person.
I did not see that.
And so it was like the planets just aligned, and so then she gets the job.
That's funny.
Any trivia question here? What three videos?
I just wrote down. She is just so good at this bubbly and smiley role, and even when she's in trouble, she's smiling and she's just clueless. She's just so naive and clueless, just like the title. And but you just love it. She is just so engaging, and what a great role for her. She's perfect.
She played a character that could have been hateable, but she was good-natured and good-hearted too, right? The Beverly Hills
definitely could have been like a very annoying or like not likable person.
Right, and so that's what I had written down too. Is that her heart was always in the right place because she was helping people. She was helping this other girl get the makeover and also matchmaking for people, and she seemed to take joy in it too. So I don't know. It was a good character for her.
Like Paul, Josh had pointed out, she was trying to set her teachers up so that she could get better grades. So
it was self-serving needs, but I think that she learned that she derived joy out of making people happy. Right.
Right. One other little fact that I had here was that Wallace Shawn actually worked as a debate teacher before getting into acting.
Oh, really?
So this role for him was not much of a stretch, and it said that he just drew off of that experience.
I do love those scenes of the kids up in front of the class and their ridiculous arguments that they make. It's really good.
As a middle school English teacher, can you relate?
Yes.
Yeah, no kidding. Or when Breckenmeyer accepts his award for the most tardies, he gives like an acceptance.
That was pretty funny. Anyone know who came up with the line "Rolling with the homies"? Who came up with that? It's somebody that's not in the movie, but it's somebody that's pretty well known. It's a rapper.
Like a Coolio song?
It's Coolio, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's Coolio's idea.
Okay.
Coolio was the one that provided the idea for putting it in the movie. Is what I read. Anyway, go on, Gifford. Any more thoughts to add?
Well, one of the references I thought that was pretty good, and they're very topical, and I figured Brad would like this one. Brad, did you do you remember the line where Cher refers to Josh as Cato because he's back at their house and
no, I did not notice that, but I get it.
Well,
already. That's great.
Came out in '95. I mean, it had to have been a quick rewrite in there. So that was during the whole trial, and that's where we met Cato Kalin, was in 1995.
Wow. Interesting.
So the scene where they're at the party with the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Oh, I have one comment about that.
How do you get the job as the dancer guy?
Oh my God, that's exactly what I wrote down. There's one guy in this band that just dances around, and that's all he does. Right. I can't believe you said that.
Really? I got that written down here.
There's a guy who just dances around on the stage. It looks really tiring.
Right. Is it like a Charlie Brown character or something? I didn't even notice it.
Basically, yeah. Pete, did you not watch the movie? Come on now.
I watched the movie, but I must have missed that.
I had two quotes that I just love. Well, there's actually three from Cher. One that I did not like. It's pretty dated when she uses the R word in there, which is just, you don't hear that anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I love these two lines where she says, "Duh, it's a famous quote." From where? Cliff's Notes.
Cliff's Notes.
And then the better one is where Brittany Murphy says, "You guys talk like grown-ups." And she goes, "Oh, this is a really good school."
Yep.
Those are pretty good stuff.
Well, I wrote down a couple lines. One, Courtney and I use all the time while driving, and that is, I totally paused when you didn't come to a full stop and stop sign. All the time.
Speaking of that, just the driving
down,
part,
yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is when they get on the freeway accidentally, and,
yes.
and it's just the screaming and the terror, and then how, what's his name, Murray, and I don't remember their names, but the couple, like, they just love each other and start making out afterwards because they thought they were going to die. It's so over the top, and it's so funny, and like realistic though too, for these dumb kids to like think that that's the worst thing ever. So I love that scene.
Well, and in that scene when everybody's going around them because she's going so slow, an old woman gives them the bird on the freeway.
Yeah, that was funny.
And they're just yelling, "Shut up! Shut up!" They're like,
the terror and the panic is just—it's so well
done. The other line I had written down, and it was one of the lines that Brittany Murphy's character had, and it is the absolute meanest thing that you can say to a 16-year-old, and it is, "You're a virgin who can't even drive."
Who can't drive.
Right. Are there two worst things that you could say to a 16-year-old?
And the way she says it, she delivers that line very well. I'm not a huge fan of Brittany Murphy, but that's a line that I remember that very well, the way she says it. It's perfect.
One of the fun facts that I read is that she was describing herself in real life because she actually, when this movie was made, she actually was a virgin who couldn't drive.
Well, and she was like the youngest person in the cast. Like, she was the most age-appropriate person, I think, pretty much for the whole movie.
Right,
because Silverstone is only a couple months younger than I am, so she was would have been, I mean, when they filmed it, was most likely a senior in high school when they.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was under 20. She's still cast pretty well for the age, but
there's a couple of things that we need to unpack about her relationship with Paul Rudd.
Well,
she says
yes.
She says earlier in the movie that she's about to turn 16, so she's 15. And he's in college.
Yeah, that's
funny. And so and also their stepbrother and stepsister, right? So it's like, that's a little bit interesting. Okay.
Maybe Gifford found this in his Emma research, but so I did just write that as I'm watching it again. It's like, why did they write it this way? I mean, they could have made them any kind of just like family friends or something. Right. Why on earth did they feel the need to have this kind of weird, awkward, incestual
It didn't matter because he had just joined the family, and
they're barely.
I guess
they barely know
thinking.
each other, but still,
it's not like they grew up together and everything. So, That makes it a little better.
And whoever wrote the movie had to make the decision, and why would you do that? I just don't get it.
Maybe I think that this may be the jumping off point for a particular kind of video you find on the internet now. There's a certain genre, and this
really different
runner to that because his step siblings. So I don't know. That's just a conjecture. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I don't know why they had to make them step brother and sister.
It just seems so unnecessary. It would have been so easy to just make them family friends. But then, even if that's the case, the age difference is still a little bit. I mean, she's so young. It's still a little bit
in college, and it didn't even. We don't know if he was a freshman or how old into his college career.
If she's like a senior in high school, if she was 18, that'd be one thing. But she, like you said, she's just turning 16. No matter how young in college he is, that's kind of.
No, I know, but I'm just saying it does make it a lot worse if he's a senior or like
those are the things when you watch it now that stand out. And it's like, what the heck?
Yeah. Back then, you didn't think about it that much.
Well, did you not? I mean, I think people must have thought about it, but because it has a second life.
I don't remember thinking that much about the college age thing. I think when I saw it the first time, I was more bothered by the stepbrother, stepsister thing than I was about the age thing. I don't know.
This time, I'm more bothered the other way, the age difference, than that, because you can explain.
Well,
like
now
you said, they barely
I
know
am.
Each other. They're not related in any blood way at all. It's so.
Yeah, I'm talking about when I saw it.
I know. I agree.
I think I flipped. Yeah.
Well, and I would say the first time I saw it, it really didn't bother me much. But when I saw it the very next night, then it bothered me more.
Did you guys?
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did you ever watch the TV show Schooled? That's on. It's on NBC, I think. That's a good show. And clearly, the reason I bring it up is because clearly it was modeled after this movie or movies like this, and it was very similar in a lot of ways. But it's a good show. I recommend you check it out. I think
I watched the first season. I think it had another one after that. I couldn't really stick with it, but it was okay. You're talking just like 2 years ago, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Same show. Okay.
Who was in it?
Tim Meadows was in it.
The actress was she was like on a Disney show. She was like in a sister group too called Allie and AJ, or that was the name of the show, maybe. I don't remember who else was in.
The premise of the show is that it takes place in the 90s, and
right.
she's like this same type of character, like Cher is, and then she comes back and becomes a teacher at the high school where she was, the dumb blonde and everything, and then she learns all these lessons and all that kind of stuff. How different it is when you're a teacher. But it's good, and then they reference back to a lot of the 90s references that we all love, and then
that's the reason I watched it, because I saw the previews and they brought up the whole 90s thing, and I thought, well, this will be great, and so I started watching it for that.
They make references, and then they'll often close out the show with a good 90s song too, depending on what the episode is and that kind of thing. Good show, check it out. That's not what we're here to talk about, though.
One thing I found interesting about this movie, we've talked about ratings before, and we talked about how, European Vacation was PG, and The Breakfast Club we think was PG-13 because of because of the drug usage.
Drug use.
But there's drug usage in this movie, and it's PG-13. Yes. So either things changed, or that has nothing to do with the real rating of it, because...
Or there's just other factors.
Things changed as far as how they rate stuff. Because you got the scene at the one party where they're drinking and smoking, and then there's multiple references to smoking, and then at the end, of course, Travis is doing his 12 steps. Once he sobers up, and
it just stood out to me when they're clearly out in the open smoking joints at this party. I'm like, well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's not how they rate movies then, and there's all these other, whatever, but...
And that may honestly just be the difference between 10 years and movie rating.
Very much could be.
Slide. Yeah. So... That's pretty much all I had for Clueless, unless you guys
had I've got my Dan Hedaya list here that...
Oh, yes. Please do not deprive us of that.
Okay. So he is my favorite part of this movie. Nick Tortelli, the dad. And his just over-the-top reactions and how funny he is, but also heartwarming, too, are just great. Mm-hmm. One of the best lines in this movie to me is the first time he meets Ty, and she's sitting at the table, and he walks up, and I think Cher says, "Dad, this is Ty." And he goes, "Get out of my chair!"
I laughed at that, too.
So great.
It reminded me of the Homer Simpson line, "Hey, get that cat out of the way!"
And then you already brought up the "Everywhere in LA takes 20 minutes." I love that line. I also love it then when he first meets Christian, who is totally clueless, and he comes in acting like this idiot, and he's got two great lines. "You think the death of Sammy Davis left an opening in the Rat Pack?" Yes. And then he says, "I got a 45 and a shovel. I doubt anyone would miss you."
Right. Now, hold on. There is one thing about
lines and funny.
About Christian. Now they go to this party where Paul Rudd is there too, but it's like she goes to this, and they're dancing on the floor, right? And then he's like, Christian starts walking around her in a circle, and then he lets out this like weird grunt. Did you notice that? It's like, oh,
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, what was that? It was like pointless, and it just didn't feel right. I just thought, wow, that was weird. Anyway, go on.
Well, try it sometime next time you're out cutting a rug there, Pete.
All right, I'll try it. See if it works.
My last note about Dan Hedaya is that, so those are all really funny lines, and there's other ones. But I love, there's a one-on-one scene towards the end. It's just like the scene in 16 Candles where the dad talks around the couch and, they missed a birthday and he apologizes. And that's like such a heartwarming part of the movie. He's such a good dad. There's the same scene in this movie where he talks to Cher like that. And he's been such a hyper and kind of just in your face guy, but he's got that heart and you truly see how he loves her and would do anything for her. So I just think he's a great character, and that was the thing that stood out to me probably the most of anything in this movie.
Oh,
awesome! As a father of a daughter, that's a very nice sentiment there, Brad.
And I don't have any more notes about this movie. So
yes.
Pete, do you have any more notes about this movie?
You guys repeated a lot of what I had on my notes. So
I guess my question, you mentioned right before we started that the movie kind of fell flat. Was it just because of the stepbrother thing, or was there more to it?
That had nothing to do with it. It just, I don't know. I remember it being a really, really great movie that I loved back in the day when it came out. I don't know. It just didn't have that same, it was good, but it wasn't, like, wow, what a great movie, like some of these movies are. I said the same thing last week about Tommy Boy.
Yep.
So maybe it's my age that's the problem.
Yeah, you're so simple. My God.
I am. I know. That's what I'm known for.
And I don't think it's a great movie, but I do love the nostalgia of it. One of the things that makes me love the movie is the music. We're going to talk about music tonight. And the music in this movie, the soundtrack is fantastic. There's a few things here and there that I don't love about it, but overall, it definitely is just something I can just sit down and watch and just breeze through it and really enjoy it. So,
right, yeah. There's not a lot of heavy thinking in this one. It's just, it's fun. It's light and airy, and it's got a lot of actors that have gone on to do a lot of other stuff.
It's fun to see all those young kids too.
It's a vehicle.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's nice to see Amy Heckerling 10 years later follow up European Vacation with a good movie. So well done.
Right. So we are going to move on to our top 5 teen comedies of the 90s. When I first put this out to you guys, I just had it as top 5 teen comedies. But once I wasn't even looking stuff up. I was just writing down from memory. And there are just way too many. And I figure, well, when we do other episodes, we could probably do, top 5 of the 80s or the 2000s or whatever then. But we're just going to concentrate on the 90s tonight. So would anybody like to list off a few of their maybe somewhere around 5 of them. Brad, I'm looking at you.
Sure, I got 5 exactly. I don't even have an extra one.
Perfect. Really?
Yeah. All right. So I'm a sucker for the teen movies and the resurgence of these movies in the late 90s. I saw all of them, and I love some of them, and some of them I don't love, but I'll watch them. I'll watch them. I saw Never Been Kissed and 10 Things I Hate About You and all those movies, but these are the 5 I wrote down. Number 5, She's All That, which is not a great movie, but I just watched it recently, and it's just, I don't know what it is about that movie. Again, there's a lot of great young actors in it too
Oh yeah.
There are some really fun things in the beginning of that movie too, though. The whole real world scenes and the stuff, it's really kind of put together in a witty way at first. It kind of goes away from that towards the end, but the first part of that movie is actually really, really good and kind of different.
Number Lillard 4 is just a genius.
Yeah, Matthew Lillard is great. Number 4, I had American Pie, which, when that came out, that was kind of just, this took everybody by storm. And I don't know, I feel like now that's one that maybe doesn't hold up as well. It's so raunchy, and it's all from the guy's perspective, but it's still funny. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
That's the story of my life right there. Raunchy from a guy's perspective.
I had Clueless at number 3. And then my top 2 are the ones I like the most. So number 2, of those late 90s ones, Can't Hardly Wait, to me, is the cream of the crop. I love that movie. I think that movie is so good. It's got a lot of, again, these great young actors. Some are in the same movies, but that one I think is just really, really well done and fun to watch. And then my number 1 goes back all the way to 1990. And this is a movie that I almost forget about sometimes, but we watched this in high school a ton. And that is Kid and Play, House Party.
Oh, I did have House Party on my
House Party.
I got that on my list.
I did actually watch that within the last year or two. Still awesome. That movie we quoted more lines from that movie, I think, in high school, maybe than any other for a time. It was fantastic. I love that movie. And I was excited to put it at number 1 because it's one that it's so long ago, you almost forget about it.
Right.
So the big thing that still drives me nuts about that movie is we never found out the answer to the question of whose is this? Have we ever figured that out?
I think it's a rhetorical question.
Oh, it is. Okay.
And you got Martin Lawrence is in that. I mean, a bunch of, and then Tisha Campbell, who went on to she was in the show Martin, right? And like a lot of young actors in that too from way back. If Stacey Dash was probably in that movie too, for God's sake.
As a high schooler in 1990.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's my list. So Pete, why don't you go next?
Excellent list.
I did have Clueless on my list. As
did
number
you,
5.
Mr. Negative?
I just remember it being better than what it was, but I remember enjoying it back in the day. So the one that I had that I remember watching, this probably doesn't hold up as well, but I remember laughing really hard at this movie. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. You remember that?
I do. I think it's from 1989. But
I found it on my list of.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I'll have to double check it.
I think I've only seen it once.
Here, you keep going. I'll double check.
Yeah. Okay. I did have House Party. I had Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, that's one I knew that I'm sure you guys probably both have.
And I had American Pie as my number 1. Already discussed.
And I like Dazed and Confused, but something about it just, even though it is a teen movie, it just doesn't feel like, they seem like they're older. It just seems different than the other ones to me, but...
Well, it seems like they're older, but the girls they stay the same age.
Same age. Right. Oh, Pete, you're on fire here.
Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead came out in 91.
Oh.
Yes.
I am egg on my face.
Is that what that is? Okay. Yeah. Well, so I completely forgot House Party. That's a big miss.
That's a big.
You'd put it in there too, right?
Part.
I would have, yes, but I'm gonna keep with the list that I have. But that would be in the top 5. So I've got a couple Honorable mentions in here. Idle Hands. I really enjoyed that movie.
I'm probably going to be wrong again, but I thought that was from the 2000s.
I don't remember ever hearing about that movie.
99, okay. I know Jessica Alba was
Jessica Alba and Seth Green's in that one. That was a funny movie. Empire Records, also a very good one.
Never seen that.
I wasn't sure
if this is a teen movie or was that more like a college movie?
Yeah, it seems like that'd be like 20-something.
Oh, that might be more college, I guess.
Yeah, kind of like Reality Bites and
like
kind
Singles
of
Reality
Singles,
Bites.
yes.
Yeah.
All right, Gifford, you're disqualified.
It's okay.
And then another one is Varsity Blues.
Yeah, that was 99. Good. Okay.
Tweeter himself makes that a comedy. Love that movie. So my top 5, number 5, She's All That. 4 is Clueless. 3 is Dazed and Confused. 2 is Can't Hardly Wait.
Nice.
And number 1 for me is American Pie. And the reason for that is I think it's hilarious. It is from a guy's point of view, and I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a guy, so I find it hilarious.
No, and I'm not saying you can't have a movie from. It's just, you know what I'm saying.
But the other thing that I liked about the movie was that it was a R-rated teen.
Well, basically, it reignited the whole R-rated raunchy movie. Like again, that was the one that brought him back, just like the '80s movie. This was like the 80s movie coming out in 1999, starting it over again.
Well, and it portrayed all the stupid, juvenile, raunchy, awful things that guys in high school and in college that we were, at our time, like that's what we do. Those are the things that
unfortunately, it's very true to life.
It related very well.
But the whole just like watching her and streaming it live, that's very awkward to watch in this day because of how bad that kind of thing is. I think that scene is maybe the one that really kind of like gives me that bad feeling about it.
Yeah, that's totally creepy, totally awful. But just the way they talked and some of the crap that happened at parties, and obviously getting, that was one that was just different than all the other ones. It just didn't seem to pull a lot of punches. So that's why that was my number 1.
I'm actually shocked you didn't have Varsity Blues in your top 5.
Well, because I didn't have it so much as a comedy, romance kind of. So that's why. But I have to mention it because it is one of my all-time favorite teen movies. Just on the comedy side of things. So now we'll move on to music of 95. I had written down that we should maybe do a top 5 albums and a top 5 songs.
I misinterpreted your thing. I thought it was songs or albums, like just music.
Well,
I just have albums.
I didn't really do it by that either. But since Brad went first last time, Pete, why don't you kick us off this time with some of your memories of 95 music?
I actually got 6. Is that okay? Permission?
Yes.
All right. Green Day, When I Come Around, was my number 6 song. Say It Ain't So by Weezer came out that year.
So these are albums we talked about in 94, but so these songs came out in 95?
The songs were released in 95.
Okay, just checking.
So I thought that was okay.
Sure you did your homework.
I did. Yep. The number 4 one on my list, I had the entire album because a lot of memories with myself and my college roommate who I talked about last week, Ali. We would listen to this one over and over again. Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. That was a huge, obviously that was the biggest album of the year, probably that year. Yes. It was huge. But Gin Blossoms I had that year were great. I love the song Gangsta's Paradise, which came out that year. I came across that and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not normally a rap guy, but I did like that one. And then number
we
one.
We just talked about Coolio earlier. So
we did. That's a big Coolio.
We'll be talking about him shortly.
A lot of Coolio. All right. And then finally, my number one, you got to go with Foo Fighters. This is a call. In my opinion, I had to go with it. Got to do it. It's got staying power.
That's your whole list.
Brad.
That's my whole list right there. Right. Go on to Brad.
All right. So I guess my honorable mentions would be more like the songs, probably, I guess. So I actually have Foo Fighters an honorable mention because I didn't actually own the debut until later on. But obviously I did love This Is a Call. And Big Me, the video, was a sensation. That was so great. Several other honorable mentions. Tripping Daisy, I had that album. And their song, oh crap, I can't even think of the name of it now. Anyway,
move on to the next one. I'll get it for you.
They had a great song, and I know about that album off that. Jewel came out that year. I've always been a nice little fan of Jewel, and You Were Meant for Me was probably my favorite. I did not own the Alanis Morissette CD, but my girlfriend did, and I listened to it a ton. When I hear her now, I don't like those songs that much anymore. I don't.
Your girlfriend or the
Yeah. No, Alanis. They're not. I mean, You Ought to Know is still a good song, but the rest just kind of like,
yeah,
really.
But I used to like that hidden track, the hidden track at the end of it. Remember that one?
No, I don't.
It's just like her a cappella, and she's like, it's called "Would You Forgive Me, Love" or something like that.
It sounds terrible.
It was good. It was good.
Okay. I didn't know if you were kidding or not.
It was pretty sexy.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Brad.
Yeah.
Your Tripping Daisy song, was it I Got a Girl?
Yes, thank you. Oh my God. I Got a Girl. So good. At the time, I loved Oasis. What's the Story? Morning Glory came out. I do not like Oasis anymore for many reasons, but I did love them then. Red Hot Chili Peppers had One Hot Minute came out this year, and the song My Friends and Aeroplane I really liked. A female artist named Poe, who had some great songs. Angry Johnny was one of and Trigger Happy Jack. Those were some good songs. Sunvolt came out that year, and I'll get to Wilco as well in my top 5. They were both in the band Uncle Tupelo, and they split apart. And the debut Sunvolt album was fantastic. Soul Asylum had a great album. Let Your Dim Light Shine with Misery and several other great songs. And then Collective Soul had an album that I loved with the song Gel in December. So those would have been my favorite songs. And I had a lot of those albums, but the whole album maybe wasn't all great, but those songs really made them great. Sure. Without further ado, my top 5. I told you last week that Dwight Yoakam would be on my list. Dwight Yoakam's Gone came out. I still listen to that album regularly. That is one of my all-time favorite country albums. He's my...
What was on that album?
Well, the song Gone was on it. Nothing was a big hit.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Gone. Sorry You Asked.
Sorry You Asked is the one.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it just went on and on. There were so many good ones. I mentioned Sunvolt and Wilco. Wilco AM came out with Box Full of Letters. That was a great album that I loved. And then these top 3 are fantastic. So number 3,
Buckle Up.
What?
I said buckle up. That's all. Go on.
Elastica. Elastica was like this kind of pop punk band from England. I don't think they were all females, but the singers were females. And the song Connection is the one you'd know. It's one of the all-time great 90s songs. But the whole album, beginning to end, awesome. Number 2, Everclear, Sparkle and Fade.
I knew you were going to have that one.
Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And then I did have Chris Isaak, Forever Blue, number 1.
Oh, of course.
Nice.
And but
very nice.
I just want to throw a plug in for that Elastica album. It's so good. And if you don't know, you'd know the song Connection. The second it comes on, you'd know it. If you don't know what I'm referring to right now.
Well, why don't you sing us a couple of bars for us? That'd be great.
I'm not gonna sing.
All right. Copyright restrictions, right?
Yeah, that is. I'm not going to do it well, so. All right, Giff, finish us off.
All right. So for albums, I also had Jagged Little Pill in there. Courtney listened to that a lot. So when I go over to her place, Alanis was always on. Shania Twain, The Woman in Me. Again, I relate to her like I relate to Cher. So yeah, a lot of bangers on that one with Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under and Any Man of Mine. I would sing that at the top of my lungs. I also had.
Would you care to sing a couple of bars for us?
No, nobody needs to hear that. Dwight Yoakam's Gone. I had on my list. They were excellent. That whole album was very, very good. And then I also had Garbage. Came out with an album that year, self-titled.
That was that year?
And yeah, 95.
Oh, well, that's an oversight by me as far as my honorable mentions at least, but that album was fantastic.
Well, yeah, and you had
I just heard Stupid Girl again.
Happy When It Rains and Queer and Stupid Girl on there.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
And the drummer for Garbage is Butch Vig, who produced Nirvana Nevermind,
Is that right?
You didn't know that, Pete?
No, I did not know that. That's amazing.
Well, yes, it is. And Shirley Manson is just a superstar as a frontwoman. She is great.
The last one I had on there was President of the United States self-titled album with songs like Lump and Peaches.
Oh my God. I didn't have that either then.
Well, yeah, I was kind of... Well, you're such a music head. Like, I figured you would have had quite a few of these.
Well, I mean, because if I'm going to make a top 5 songs of the 90s, Lump is going to be on it. So that was another oversight by me.
Mm-hmm.
So then I just wanted to go through some of my favorite songs that weren't on any of those albums. So one, maybe the top one when I hear it takes me back to 95, and that's Bullet with Butterfly Wings from Smashing Pumpkins. That is 95, just drips with 1995.
Oh, and that's the album that Dave bought, and he played it all the time in our apartment, and then his roommate in his bedroom, Kurt, got so sick of it, and we still make jokes about that album today about how he listened to it. But that song is so good.
Right. So Tragic Kingdom from No Doubt was released a year earlier, but Just a Girl in Spiderwebs was released in 95.
Yeah, this had to be the year that became really big.
Yep. Goo Goo Dolls' Name came out this year. I also had Santa Monica by Everclear. Gangster's Paradise was huge, Pete, but off of that album, I prefer 1, 2, 3, 4. Get your woman.
Get your woman on.
Gotta get up, get down.
That was just on the radio tonight on my way home from where I was. That's so funny.
That's amazing.
Oh. So, Brad, this was the song I thought for sure you would bring up, at least be an honorable mention somewhere in the list. It's one of your all-time favorite karaoke songs by John Michael Montgomery.
Oh, did that come out this year?
Sold.
The Grundy County auction incident.
Yes.
I
hammered that
song
the other night and loved every second of it. Also, Lone Star had No News. That was a big one off of their Lone Star album. Bush's Glycerine.
Glycerine.
Another one we'd always sing was Montel Jordan's This Is How You Do It.
Oh, yeah.
Was huge in 95. And then maybe my favorite besides the Pumpkin song was David Lee Murphy's Dust on the Bottle. You guys remember that one?
Yeah,
if you don't, please look it up and listen to it. And that was a phenomenal. The single was released in August of 95. I believe that album came out in 94.
So the song Connection, it starts with the big, like, whoo. What I'm talking about.
Which one now?
You go, whoo. I go, neener, neener.
I'm completely lost.
Pete, you can edit that out. You're going to listen to that.
Nope, that stays in. That stays in. We're leaving in Gifford's phone call, and we're going to leave that in too. It's going to be great.
I tried.
Oh my God.
People like the candid stuff better, right?
Yes.
All right.
It makes it more real. So that's pretty much everything that I had for 1995 for this episode.
Yeah, we got one left.
Is that it? Wow.
What are we going to finish with next week?
Let's do The Usual Suspect, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. I'll have to give it a watch. That's going to be a good one.
Great twist endings to movies.
It's twist.
Yes.
It's twist, amongst other things.
Well, twist endings to movies, and then also our top 5 movies of 95, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be a fun one.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of good ones to choose from. So
a good list. Not quite like, what year was Roadhouse? 89, but it's still going to be a good list.
89.
Yeah. Not quite 94 either, but it's a good one.
Yes.
It's a good one. Hey, Pete, people that are listening to this, what should they do if they like the content that we got cooking?
Well, how about they go on Twitter or Facebook right now and follow us and like us and comment, and be sure to go on Apple Podcasts and or any of the platforms. Leave us a review. We would love to hear from our listeners. That would be great. Thank you for the reminder, Gifford. Also, what they should do is start their own podcast. They should click on the link within our show page, and then that will take them to Buzzsprout, which makes it very easy to get started.
If we can do it.
Awesome. I've been thinking about starting
that hard.
We can do it. We're really not that bright, as you can tell. And so if we can figure it out, then you will be too. So, but I think that wraps up our show. So we'll wrap it up with a little Preacher Row. Have a good night, everybody.
Catch you later.
Bye.
No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your son is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. Next time, tell me how